Hi ninjas, and welcome to another visual guide of Sekiro. Now that Genichiro has been defeated and you descend down the stairs to your master, instead of fleeing with you from Ashina, he dispatches you on a task to sever the immortal ties, which includes you to find 3 separate items from 3 different locations. These locations are the Senpou Temple, the Ashina Depths, and the Sunken Valley. You can access all of them from the Ashina Castle and go to whichever of these areas first, but I recommend going to the Senpou Temple first, as the enemies and bosses there are the easiest, and the reward will easen up the 2 remaining areas remarkably. As you get to the Shugendo idol and get past the 4 Senpou assassins, you arrive at a menacing looking bridge, and as you begin to cross it, a warrior walks in front of you and blocks your path. This fight can be either very hard or very easy, depending on how soon you realize what needs to be done. The armored warrior is a slow but very hard hitting boss that you need to be careful with. He has very few attack types, but all of them deal moderate to high damage. His basic attacks are mainly heavy swings with the sword from the sides, diagonal swings, or when he points the sword at you while walking towards you as if he was readying a stab, but he instead does a downward swing. All of his attacks vary depending on his distance to you, so if you're right next to him, the armored warrior will swing a bit faster since there's no closing in animation in between. But if you have some distance between instead, he'll take a few quick steps to narrow the gap and then proceed to swing at you. All of these attacks deal moderate damage when they hit you, and if you block them, they deal a lot of posture damage. If you see him lifting his sword straight up right in front of him, he prepares a downward slam attack with the sword, where he slams you into the ground, dealing high damage. Usually when he does a combo of 2 swings, sometimes after a swing from right to the left, he leaves his sword pointing towards you as he readies a perilous thrust attack that deals high damage. As per usual, use your Mikiri counter to deal posture damage against his attack. As the armored warrior is a large target and his sword comes from up high, the Mikiri counter might not connect sometimes, so keep that in mind and try to execute the Mikiri counter from a bit of distance instead of right next to him. Usually after the Mikiri counter, he goes on a rage-like state and rushes at you with a combo of hammering strikes. Yet again, depending on the distance, this attack might differ. If you are right next to him as he starts raging, he immediately does 3 hammering strikes and then charges up a lunge and does a swiping attack from his right to left. If you instead are far away from him when he begins to rage, he instead starts with a lunging slam attack, followed by 3 hammering strikes and so on. Sometimes when close to you, the armored warrior will hold his sword sideways and push you with it. That deals low damage, but immediately afterwards he will lift his sword up and slam you down. That deals high damage. Try to deflect the push so you won't falter and stay vulnerable for the slam, but if you get hit, do your best to at least block it. Now let's look at some tactics and tips. As you might have guessed from his name and seen probably yourself, you can't damage the armored warrior at all in any way. He does take posture damage, and he really doesn't recover posture damage at all, unless you miss a death blow where he recovers a quarter of his posture bar. But if you thought it was going to be impossible, then you are mistaken, because the boss will eventually give out the answer conveniently on how to defeat him. As you might have noticed, the walls break up during the fight when the armored warrior hits them, and every time you perform a death blow on him, you jam your sword into him in order to gain leverage as you pull it out and push him forward. So you will need to combine these 2 elements, or in simple terms, push him off the bridge. But in order for that to happen, you first need to fill up his posture bar. The tactic is to simply deflect his attacks and Mikiri counter his thrust attacks. Luckily his attacks are very slow and well telegraphed, so study his attacks and deflect them. Whenever you get behind him, you can raise his posture bar by hitting him as many times as you can. As his posture bar fills up and he staggers, be sure to aim the death blow towards an open edge and you're sure to finish him off and hear his final, legendary scream. You are rewarded with a prayer bead and the Breath of Nature Shadow skill, which recovers your posture a huge amount after you perform a death blow. And with that, we will wrap up with the video. Up next, we will look at the first boss of the Sunken Valley and Ashina Depths, for as it happens, it is the same boss type in both regions. I hope this video was of help. Leave a like if it was, subscribe for more, and if you have any questions or comments, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, stay vigilant, and I'll see you next time.
Fight, fight, fight if you wanna live long. Fight, 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 you gotta stay strong.